as homeschool parents, what's going to happen is your kid's going to come to you and say, I need to know this. And you're going to say, I don't know that. And then you're going to have to say, go figure it out. And that's the absolutely crucial, critical, essential skill that they need. And so, you don't know how to teach algebra. Fantastic. Your kid's going to have to figure out how to learn algebra. Fantastic. They may never use algebra again for the rest of their life, but the act of learning how to figure it out on their own is going to be transferable and is going to give them colossal, tremendous, unbelievable advantages over all of their peers.
Welcome. It's the Colorado Homeschool Podcast, interviewing experts, parents, graduates, all here to help you navigate this incredible journey called homeschooling. And if you're looking for resources, tips, and help, go to CHEC.org. You'll find what you need. In the meantime, subscribe, follow along.
Well, hello and welcome. I'm your host, Kashia Davis, and we are excited to have you with us and excited to have our guests with us today, Jonathan Brush from Unbound. He's the president and CEO of Unbound, also a homeschool graduate, a homeschool father. I'm so excited. He is going to be sharing so much. He's also an author. We'll talk a little bit about his book. And Jonathan is going to be a speaker at our upcoming Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference. So guys, grab your notebooks, get ready. Jonathan, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to being on the show, and I'm also looking forward to coming back to Colorado. I've got some great memories of being in Colorado. We're there once a year for one of our events, and I've been to your convention several times, and so I'm very excited about coming back to the Rocky Mountains. So looking forward to it.
Nice. What event do you come here annually for?
Our final event for our year for our Ascend program, which is our post-high school program, is called Capstone, and we hold it generally at Estes Park. We moved around a little bit in Colorado, but it's been in Colorado every year except for the one year that shouldn't be named, where we had to all do different things. So other than that, we've been in Colorado for a long time, and we really enjoy being there and looking forward to being there. This year will be the very beginning of May, so we'll be there in May, and then for the convention, so it'll be a good year.
Oh, so good. Back to back with us because our convention is in the middle of June. So, and Estes Park is spectacular. So we have invited Jonathan to come on because he is going to be a speaker at our Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference, and also because of his amazing program that he's a part of called Unbound. So Jonathan, let's start there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Unbound is and how it's a little unique in your approach to education?
Yeah, so Unbound, we say that we do project-based education. And so the first part that's unique is that I'm way more interested in your ability to do real things than I am in your ability to get grades. Now, I'm always careful when I say this. I'm not belittling grades. They're the right tool in certain circumstances. But for the students that we work with and the kinds of things that we do, and I think more and more the world that we live in, the ability to do stuff actually becomes the most important thing. And so we have an educational model built on that. And then we have a goal that I think is important, which is I'm not interested in training people to be successful, which is what I think a lot of education promises these days. We've moved from this kind of Augustinian idea of education being something that should develop you as a person to this idea that education is a gateway to some sort of success. And success is almost always defined as being some version of rich, famous, or powerful. And I don't know that it's bad to be rich, famous, or powerful. I just know that if that's your end, it's an empty road that you're going to be walking, right? And so there's a lot of problems and pitfalls there, not to mention the fact that it's hard. So there's often a little disappointment that comes in that. And so in Unbound, we train students to thrive. And we have a definition for that. And so we have a slightly different goal and a slightly different process. And that puts us in a great place where we have this framework where we can do some cool stuff. And we work with students in high school, especially homeschool students. And then we do a post-high school program that can move students into a college degree. We can help them earn 90 credits that they can transfer. But more and more students use it as an end program in itself. So the certificate from our Ascend program, we actually say that if you earn that certificate, we guarantee employment at full college tuition levels, meaning that if you make the same as a college graduate in your area, or we'll refund all of your tuition. And we're in a situation where we've just never even had to think about refunding anybody's tuition. And so that just puts us in a unique spot where we can do some cool things. And Kashia, the really cool thing is we get to work with some awesome students, including people that come to your convention and conferences and things like that. And so that helps a lot. So.
Yeah, we were talking before we started filming, and I said my daughter was a part of what was at the time called College Plus, and they helped her. She got her college degree primarily through CLEP testing. There was a summit ministry aspect of it with Worldview training and study skills, but her favorite thing was the coaching. and the relationship she built with her coach, and just her diving deep into praying for who God created her to be. So that's kind of what I love about what you're saying. Is it makes me think a lot of what I say to new homeschool families, which is you've got to begin with the end in mind, and you have to know what is your goal and how would you define successful education. And I love what you said. So tell me what your special definition is of thrive.
So we say that when we talk about people thriving, it's to mean that they're prepared to take full responsibility for their life, that they prioritize relationships. And we actually have a little saying that we tell all our students. We say time and tasks only make sense in the context of relationships. That those relationships are set up in the context of serving others. And then we teach students that you serve others by being extraordinary at ordinary things. That so often we think that success comes from, I can help people when I'm rich, famous, and powerful and do these things. And we say, actually, you can change the world immediately by being extraordinary at ordinary things. And the cool thing is you get an opportunity to do that right now. That if you're going to be successful economically, that means you have to know how to create value. So this isn't about sort of making money. It's about how do you create value? How do you do things that lead to human flourishing? And then coming on the heels of that becomes economic success in the sense that, you can provide for your family and you can help others. And so then we tell students that to thrive means to be able to live resiliently. And that is the idea that, you shouldn't be surprised as a Christian that you live in a broken, busted world full of tragedy and that you don't get exempted from that. Like that you will experience tragedy, and that's bad news. It's not the way things are supposed to be, right? But also you shouldn't be surprised as a Christian when that happens to you. Now, the good news is, if we stop there, we have a bunch of depressed people, right? But the good news is that we live in that reality in a hope that eclipses that reality. That you can live in a world like that because you believe in one who will redeem all things.
Amen.
And in fact, enlists you to be a process in that redemption. So there's something you can do about it. And then we do that all in the light of eternity and for the glory of God. And if you pursue those things, and it's not that we think that that's the perfect formula. We just think that, if your end includes pieces of those things, that those are things that can be accomplished almost immediately and then mastered over the rest of your life. And now, if you wind up becoming rich, famous, or powerful, you'll be prepared to handle those things wisely. And if you don't, which is frankly the majority of us, then you're not confused and think that you've wasted your life. In fact, you've probably lived a tremendously impactful life that has changed the world in myriads of ways that you won't fully understand this side of eternity. And so your life is full of purpose, regardless of your bank account, your status, or your power that you have. So we talk about that constantly. And to me, that's one of the most exciting aspects of watching young people go, and go from this kind of like, oh man, I've got all this huge mountain to climb, and go, no, I can start right now and then look at all this unexplored territory in front of me. And that's when things get exciting.
Oh, I love it. I so love it. I mean, you're addressing kind of in just that comment, a lot of the things that I hear that are a fear for homeschool families. Right. They're afraid that they are not going to be able to equip their children, that they're not going to be able to provide for themselves. And also, I think a fear of just inhumanity, right? It's really foundation to our world is what is the meaning of life? What is our purpose in life?
Right.
So it seems like a really lofty goal. I'd love to kind of dig a little bit into how you guys do that. I mean, is this a very heavy Bible program? Is this, Do you want to break that down a bit?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you say is it a heavy Bible program, I would answer that it's a heavy worldview program, which is sort of a yes and I don't mean to belittle that it's more than or something like that. I just mean that I often tell people, look, you can break down the Bible into various parts. And so there's an aspect of the Bible that's theological and what does God mean and who is he and all those kinds of things. And there's a part of the Bible that's practical, the wisdom type stuff, the Ecclesiastes and the Proverbs. And we are specifically in that latter category, which is this is applied practical Christian living. So that means that, yes, we think that in order to do applied practical Christian living, you have to have some level of apologetic understanding. And so you mentioned earlier working with Summit Ministries. We use Summit Ministries materials in our high school program. We work with Dr. Jeff Myers in our the program that I said that we come to Colorado for. Part of the reason we do that is because Dr. Myers is one of our speakers for that event. And so we work with those folks and do that. But we also are pretty careful to say this, Kashia, this is going to sound a little odd, but it's worth exploring. We're really careful to say we're not a church. I'm not. In fact, our mission is to. We want our students to remain embedded in their local communities, and my mission ultimately is to train special forces for the local church. And so to do that, I want to say, here's the practical skills that you need to live a rich life where you thrive. And that's my lane. And it's not, and I think so many times people get confused and they try to do everything. Look, figuring out exactly who God is and what that all means, that's a local pastors and local churches' job. And we want to build on that, and we'll help fill some gaps if necessary, but that's not our primary responsibility. Our primary responsibility is to say, okay, knowing some of that and taking that as an accepted base, what does it mean to practically live that out? Because we think that your faith has, immediate application to how you create value and how you make decisions and how you live your life and how you serve others by being extraordinary to ordinary things. And it's that intersection where we want to spend all of our time saying, let me show you how to practically be good at these skills that you need to live life richly every day. And let me show you the excitement and the ability in there to be part of redeeming all things.
Wow, that's good. So I have a friend who used to work with us here at CHEC who actually works with you. I think she still does, maybe. And I told her, hey, I'm doing an interview with Jonathan Brush. What would you say about him? And she said, oh, he loves community. And he loves specifically to make community that goes home and does what you just said, that engages with their community at home. And so why do you think community is so important? It's like, because I've heard you mention it a few times, like even
well, first of all,
warriors.
I know the person you're talking about. We love her dearly.
Oh,
and in fact,
nice.
we're looking forward to seeing her when we come to Colorado both times.
Oh, good.
And so speaking of that community, that's one of the cool things about being in Unbound. You heard us say that we think part of knowing how to thrive is prioritize relationships. And when we say prioritize relationships, I said that little mantra that we talk about to our students. Time and tasks only make sense in the context of relationships. And that is, you can be the best time management wizard in the world. You can be the most, the productivity king or queen. You can get all the success. And if you don't understand how they connect to relationships, those things are going to be empty. That doesn't mean you can't go somewhere. It doesn't mean that you can't gain status and power and all those things. It just means you're not going to like what you get, right? And so there's a fundamental relational aspect built into the fabric of reality. And for Christians, that's built in the fabric of our faith. And, when we talk about things like the Trinity and our relationship to Christ and all those things. So, we tell students your first relationship we're, interested in is your relationship to the one who made you and to the one who redeemed you. And then that's reflected in the way you treat other people. And so I think then that all things sort of start with that base. And so if we can train students to be better relationally, then we can train students to be part of or to start or to be integral pieces, important pieces of communities. And that's the bedrock of society, right? If I'm going to make an impact in the world, it's going to make an impact in those local areas. And so our program is deliberately structured, and I want to do two things. The first is I want to allow students to remain embedded in their local communities. And I'm always careful when I say this. I'm not arguing in some weird way that one ought not to move away, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think that there's an underappreciated reality that staying in a place for a period of time can be really helpful. And so, Kashia, I think your background, if I remember correctly, and I'm risking here, so I might be wrong, but is that you have a military background? Is that
Yeah.
okay? So I was straight. I think I remember I got this right. So obviously there's great advantages to that kind of lifestyle. You get to meet people and go so many places, experience so many different cultures. I'm not in any way discounting that, but the advantage of that is fairly well known. What is less known is the advantages of being in one place for a time and being able to connect to those local communities. And so I want to, a little overemphasize that just so there's a little balance there. But then I want to say, it doesn't matter about your time there. It's that your engagement with those local communities ends up being really important. So I want you to be in a program that allows you to remain embedded in your local communities, but I want to give you a national network so that you have this system of relationships that makes living in your local community even easier. So we have students that do our Ascend program, for example. They're accessing some courses online. They're meeting with their teams online and they're doing those things. And so now they're still part of the church that they grew up in probably, and perhaps they're still living at home and they're in those neighborhoods and they're leveraging their professional contacts and they're working for people that they've met and all those kinds of things, right? I think that's really exciting. I'm giving them skills, not me, but our program is giving them skills that allows them to do that better, right? To be better equipped to do that. But at the same time, 4 times a year, I'm giving them a plane ticket and I'm having them fly to Colorado and to Michigan and to Pennsylvania and to Florida. And when they're there, we're having these really intense experiences with their people from their teams and from the rest of the program. And so what happens is that all of a sudden you have this national network of friends. And my favorite story is my son and his friend a couple of years ago backpacked around the country, right? So they went up from Virginia to the Dakotas, across to Washington, down through California, and back through Colorado. And they spent a lot of time backpacking, but they never stayed in a hotel. because they stay with unbound families the whole way around
Oh,
the country.
wow. That's awesome.
And when they broke down in the middle of Montana, they called me and I called an alumni and said, hey, I got 2 unbound students broken down 4 hours from you. He's like, oh, 4 hours in Montana, that's our backyard. And he dropped everything, fixed their vehicle, offered them a place to stay, took care of them, and sent them back on the road. Now, that makes your ability to live locally even better when you have that kind
Makes
of
local bigger.
right, exactly. And so it's that combination, like, hey, and I think that reflects our faith. You can only affect deeply the people that you're close to. At the same time, we're all members of this global church, right? Like we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And so in some ways, this is a little micro reflection of that we get to carry out in Unbound.
Wow. I'm listening to you and I'm going, man, this is so countercultural because we live in a world of social media and we're so not connected. We don't have community. We don't have connection. In fact, man, I am so bad about remembering statistics, but I know recently I just read about how many kids do move away. And I love that you started with the caveat of I'm not saying that you need to do that. But I do think it's important, and Satan is definitely attacking it. I think what you're saying about community holds us accountable to one another. It holds us accountable to what God has asked us to do. And my mantra that I always say is that we're here for such a time as this. Like
Absolutely.
helping people engage in what is the purpose that God has created you for. This is beautiful. I cannot even wait. Because you're so inspirational. Thank you for being here. I love your energy. What are you going to share when you come to the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference? Do you know what some of the topics you're teaching on?
So you said
You
something
probably have a lot.
Well, you said this right before we recorded it, and I was like, I do. I have a list somewhere, but I don't remember them right at the top of my head. And so I'm sure they're going to be great. No, I don't remember the exact titles. And of course, you can go to the conference website because I've signed a contract. I know what we're going to talk on, and I just can't remember off the top of my head what they're going to be. But I can say this. Through those themes, that we try to hit on a lot is we try to talk about this idea of the things we just already mentioned, community and thriving and all those kinds of things. But I want to add a couple other layers to that, which is I find that, and I loved you for such a time as this. I tell students and young people all the time, look, you weren't accidentally placed here. And you weren't placed here as a tend the garden generation, right? This is a, man the walls, beat off the attack, then open the gates, launch forward, take ground, and hold it beachhead type of generation, right? Like there's a purpose to be here. There's a reason to be here. You're not here accidentally. And so we don't get to relax, and that's a good thing. And I also tell folks, and this is part of the themes that we'll hit in whatever topics we're doing, and say that, look, you're not unique in that there's big problems. That there's never been a generation that didn't have big problems. These just happen to be our big problems. And in some ways, I'm really grateful that our big problems aren't the Black Death, right? I'm really grateful that our big problems don't involve Nazi Germany. There are compared to some points of history, we do have a fairly easy ride. But it's also to say that, there's big problems. Welcome to planet Earth. I mean, what I said earlier about live resiliently, expect big problems. And so first, it's kind of like that awareness. And then the second is, I want to instill an excitement, like that means you have a mission and a purpose. And I want to also pull some stress. I see young people who have more opportunity than any generation that's ever walked the earth, right? And who are just crippled with fear and confusion and paralysis of what to do. And look, if you're a young person listening to this, I'm not saying that in a blaming, accusatory fashion. I'm saying in that's a tactic that has been used effectively against you, and I want to neuter that tactic. And I want to say, look, there are certain things that you can do, there are questions you can ask that are not particularly complicated, that can help you navigate an admittedly difficult world, right? But there are some real things you can hold on to that if you know to ask this question and you know a couple of these principles, you're going to do fine. And not only going to do fine, it's an exciting, wonderful time to be alive. Yes, there's challenges. There's also beauty and awesomeness and excitement and things to do. And you're placed here to do stuff. And so you have a mission and a purpose. So whenever we talk about, we wrap it around those kinds of themes. Let me talk about what it means to thrive. What does it mean to do real things? And how do we equip you to be excited, but also not stressed, to look forward with excitement, no matter what the circumstances? It's better than some. And thank goodness it's not perfect, because then you'd be useless, and you're not. I mean,
exactly.
there's a purpose, right? There are things that you need to do, and you are uniquely equipped to do them. So
Oh, I love that. So good. So if you have a mom coming up to talk to you or a father, that is in the midst of, they have a junior high or maybe just about to start homeschool, do you have a piece of advice that you generally give them when they're just looking at I don't know, high school? Is a lot of parents are deer in the headlights when they start thinking about high school.
yes, okay. I'm trying to be cautious and not spend 40 minutes on this. So I'm going to try to shove it all
This
down to
is
a
a
smaller
teaser.
box.
They got to
So
come see you.
yeah. So first of all, congratulations. This is the best time. And look, I speak of very little things and claim a lot of authority. But my oldest is 25 and my youngest is 1. And yes, there's a lot of stories involved in
Wow.
that.
Okay.
And there's 8 of them total. And at first I want to tell you that every stage keeps getting better, and I won't speak beyond 25. And so, but you talk about a lot of fun and a lot of excitement, a lot of cool things, and that is preteen through teen and through young adults. And I hate the word teenager, so I say that you have children or you have young adults. And so young adults, which I think starts 13 and goes up, is an exciting time and can be a wonderful time. So does it come with challenges? Yes. Also, the 1-year-old has challenges called not sleeping. And so, I don't know which ones you like better. So okay, so that's first of all, just be positive and excited about this. This can be a really good time. The second thing is this. So many people are worried about homeschooling high school because all the complicated stuff happens here. And that is true. But here's something that is playing to your advantage that you don't have anything to do with, but you're just going to be able to inherit, and which is so cool to be a homeschooler. We live in this time where everything's changed, and we used to live in an answers-based paradigm where how much stuff was in your head was really important. And it was important because it was hard to get new information. So that was a business advantage, it was a cultural advantage, it was a social advantage, right? And you can measure that by how many letters you have behind your name. And you got that stuff by going to some place where only they could deliver that information. You do not live in that world anymore, right? And so you now live in a questions-based paradigm. You have instant access to the entirety of the world's information, and asking questions and knowing how to sort that information and having enough knowledge to have context to know what's right and what's wrong is the important part, right? Okay. Well, that's really good because the entire educational system is set up as an answers-based system, which is totally useless for every job in every field that you're going to do as soon as you get out of college. I'm going to get out of high school, excuse me, right? Get out of school is what I'm trying to say. And so, but as homeschool parents, what's going to happen is your kid's going to come to you and say, I need to know this. And you're going to say, I don't know that. And then you're going to have to say, go figure it out. And that's the absolutely crucial, critical, essential skill that they need. And so, you don't know how to teach algebra. Fantastic. Your kid's going to have to figure out how to learn algebra. Fantastic. They may never use algebra again for the rest of their life, but the act of learning how to figure it out on their own is going to be transferable and is going to give them colossal, tremendous, unbelievable advantages over all of their peers, because that's actually, so by default, you literally can't teach high school the traditional way because you're not a teacher on all the subjects. And that very reality is what's going to set you up to be more successful than everybody else, because you're going to have to make your student learn the things on their own. And that process is the best thing that you can do to prepare your kid for success, if you wanted to define success that way, to thrive, however you want to set that up. And so, yeah, it's point for first of all, it can be great. And secondly, the system is designed to put you in a better position than everybody else just by default. How cool is that? It's just, you don't have to do anything special. You have to know some super knowledge. You have to use some super specific curriculum. The fact that you don't know is going to be your secret weapon. So.
I love that. I heard somebody once say, when they were asked about what's your favorite age or what's your favorite season, and her answer was this one, because
Yeah, 100%.
that's exactly it. Every single season has...
And if you have 8, you can do them all at the same time. So
yeah. So I love it. Okay, well, I don't even, well, no, I do want to talk about your book, because you wrote a book what is it called? Your Personal Triangle, or The Personal Triangle?
The Personal Triangle, yeah.
Okay, tell us about that, because I feel like some of what you've said is, at least my understanding of what the book is kind of in that. So,
yeah. So first of all, this came out of, sometimes books come out of annoyance, right? And so my annoyance was that I had a lot of students who were really into Myers-Briggs and then the Enneagram and some other stuff. And it's not that those things don't have some role. I think they have less role than most people think they do. It's that I would see kids take that and think, oh, I'm a 7, or I'm a this, or I'm an introvert or an extrovert. And it became some self-fulfilling prophecy. At the same time, I saw a lot of people go, I don't know what I'm good at. But they always define good at being well, I'm really good at riding bikes, so I should race mountain bikes for a living. Well, those things are not being good at riding bikes is a specific skill. It's a hard one to earn a living at. But the process of what you went through to be able to learn how to ride bikes, that's probably transferable. People couldn't understand it, right? So I didn't want something super like, you know, answer all these questions. I want something that people could instantly go, oh, that makes sense. And so in the book, we say, hey, most people either create people, they come up with new ideas all the time, connect people, they connect really well to other people, or coordinate people, they're really good at the details. And the point is that most people are really good at one of those, sort of good at the second one, and less good at the third. And sometimes they're way out in the end of that triangle, you know, they're just a complete people person and everything else is behind. And sometimes they're sort of in the middle of that triangle and stuff like that. And so that can be helpful, right? And I tell people, you know, if you work at Chick-fil-A, if you are a coordinate person, you probably ought not to be up front taking orders. If you're a connect person, you probably ought not to be in the back, you know, moving fries, right? You know, in other words, those things are helpful to know, right? And if you're a create person, you're pretty soon going to be in management going, why don't we do this differently? And so knowing that can be helpful. And then the final thing we say in that book is like, but it's not permanent, right? All of us have to have all three of those skills. I mean, I need to be able to meet people. I need to be able to come up with new ideas for what I'm going to do in my life. And I have to balance my checkbook. So that's all three skills, right? And so often just looking at something and going, well, I need to pull this skill up a little bit, or I need to learn a little bit more there. And so what I wanted was just a quick, fast assessment tool. So the kid that was saying, well, I don't know, I really like to sing and I really like to swim. But I don't, you know, I'm not going to the Olympics and I don't think I'm going to be on stage, right? And I'd say, well, tell me what you like about singing. Well, I love being on stage. Also, you're in a connect person. Well, I love writing new music. Oh, you're a create person. Well, I love the discipline of figuring out how to, oh, you're a coordinate person. Okay, well, what you learned doing singing, that transfers to every job on the planet, right? If you are really disciplined to teach yourself a new instrument, that's really good for learning a new job. If you love being on stage, that ability to communicate is going to be helpful to you in any kind of company. If you love coming up with new things and writing new songs, you're going to be a problem solver in some organization. And so it's that understanding and then the transferability that I think is really important. And so the book talks about that. And we talk about book, just to be clear, this is like a 20-minute read, heavily illustrated book, because I want it to be accessible to students who could digest it quickly and parents and go, oh, that makes sense. I can use that. So,
yeah, I love that. And I love what we were talking about even before we started recording, what you just mentioned, is to not be stuck into one category,
right,
and to allow for growth, right? Like it's
absolutely
good to evaluate, but then also trust that the Holy Spirit is growing and you have the ability to improve in things, right?
Well, and the world changes. I talk to students all the time that they think that by 18, they have to know what they're going to do for the rest of their life so they can get the right major and go to the right college. And look, that was never really true and is really not true now. And so I tell students all the time, look, you don't have to find some one secret special thing that only you can do. You need to find a set of skills that you're more comfortable doing. And if you don't like those skills, you can shift to something else, right? And then understand that you'll probably get to use those skills in a variety of different places and settings overall. And it'll change frequently as technology disrupts industries and you move and you do different things, all this kind of stuff. And that's normal. And it's not something to be scared of. It's something to be excited about. And you generally don't know that by going, oh, I think real hard. Oh, I'm that kind of thing. You figure it out by experiencing it. So do things, and some things you'll fail at, some things you'll succeed at, and you'll stop and go, I like that and I didn't like that. And it's that process that moves you forward. And anybody can do that. You don't have to be some super special self-known genius. You know, this is the way people move forward. And it's the way people always have moved forward. It's not new.
It's so good you're talking to the young adult who's trying to get their bearings and their feet about it, but I'm hearing the answer to so many of the fears that homeschool families and parents have all the time. It's the same idea. Just be adaptable and change and, you know, be a student of your student, be a student of the world, be a student and know how to point them to things, not be the expert, which is kind of what I heard you say.
And it's such an exciting time to do this. I mean, like, look, 50 years ago, if you didn't put somebody in a position to go to university at the right time, it was hard to go back later and do that. You couldn't really drop your family and go back and take classes easily and all that kind of stuff. So there was some timing issues that are important. That's just not the case anymore, right? And so, you know, I have a son who I love dearly, right? And so he didn't pay a lot of attention to science early on in high school because he was really into music, okay? And so it's not like he didn't do them, he just didn't do them great. And so you go, oh, we failed that. Well, yes, but my son now is an EMT, and he's a really good EMT. And he's getting in nursing school, and all of a sudden, it was necessary to know all that science. And you know what? We have tools and ability and information and access to information that in like 8 weeks, he basically replicated all the stuff he should have learned at those times, and then got like the highest score he could get on both his EMT exam and his nursing exam to get in nursing school. And so there's this there's this thing where, people are so scared they'll forget something. I'm gonna hit that fear right in the head. You will.
You
100%.
are,
And
yes.
someone's going to be major stuff. And you
Yeah.
know what? It doesn't matter because you're in a situation where somebody can go back like my son and go, oh, I need that now. And now they're motivated and they had, we had some of the pieces, right? And he filled the rest of them in. And I'm looking at that and going, you know why he was able to do that? Because he took more time a couple years ago on his music, which gave him the skills that made it possible for him to learn the stuff really fast when he needed that.
Yeah, I love you're definitely an optimist, Jonathan. That's what I think about our conversation, and I love it because I think that's the heart of the Lord. There's always hope. He's sovereign. He's in control. So good. Wow. Well, our conversation has flown, but I would like to wrap it up with we try to ask everybody this question. If you have to give just one tip that you would say is the best or primo, what is your homeschooling tip that you would leave somebody with?
So this is not original. I hope you've heard this all kinds of other places. The major advantage of homeschooling, the thing that gives you the secret sauce for everything else, is not whether you can teach math and whether your kid can learn Greek and all that kind of stuff. It's the extra time that you can use to build a relationship. And if you build a relationship with your child, look, everything, all the rest of the stuff will figure out. Time and task only makes sense in the context of relationship. Honestly, algebra and science and English and spelling only makes sense in the context of relationship. And so if you're ever stuck, if you're ever tired, if you're ever burnout, if you're ever weary, start with saying, what's my relationship with my kid look like? And if you can get that to work, I just promise you, for the past 25 years, I've been paid to watch people succeed or fail in educational ventures. And I have 8 children of my own, 4 of whom have either graduated or are about to graduate. And I can say this personally and professionally, that if you concentrate on the relationships, whatever gets missed will get fixed. And if you miss the relationship part, whatever gets put in there won't matter. And so, there's an easy fix anytime you're stuck and every time you're worried. How's your relationship with your kid?
Yeah.
Figure that out first.
So good. So good. Well, Jonathan, I can't wait. I hope people flock to come see you at our conference. So we'll see you there. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in Colorado.
Thank you so much for joining us today. The Colorado Homeschool Podcast is a ministry of Christian home educators of Colorado. We have been motivating parents to disciple the next generation by embracing home discipleship that is Christ-centered, parent-directed, and free from government control. We invite you to join us in this mission. If you want to support homeschooling in Colorado, go to CHEC.org/donate. In the meantime, share this with your friends and make sure you subscribe. That really helps us. Thank you.
Brought to you by thepodcastupload.com, empowering faith-driven voices.